Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer held talks in Turnberry, Scotland this morning. What they said about Russia and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Trump has reached a massive trade deal with the European Union. Does the deal benefit every party? We discuss with an economist. And Russia's national airline is hit with a cyber attack. A group claiming to be Ukrainian hackers has taken responsibility. Tesla signs a $16 billion deal to source chips from Samsung, and the chips will be produced in Texas. A new Taiwanese TV series shows what a Chinese invasion could look like, why some viewers say the show is a wake-up call. Extreme heat will affect more than 100 million people nationwide, and forecasters say there's no relief for at least a few days.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. President Trump is moving up Russia's deadline to come to the negotiating table and end the war. If not, Russia faces sanctions as well as secondary tariffs on its trade partners. And on Gaza, Trump said the fight to free hostages will now be different. NTD's international correspondent, Malcolm Hudson, has more from London.
Russia is going to get a shorter deadline to get to the negotiating table. President Trump said he's unhappy with Russian President Putin and efforts to end the war in Ukraine. The deadline will be...
I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait?
Trump said he originally gave Putin 50 days because he wanted to be generous, but said he sees no progress being made.
We have such nice conversations, such respectful and nice conversations, and then people die the following night with a missile going into a town and hitting, recently, I guess, the nursing home.
He said if he can't strike a deal with Putin before the new deadline, he will hit Russia with sanctions and with secondary tariffs. Those are tariffs targeting countries that trade with Russia to increase diplomatic pressure. He also dismissed the idea of a meeting with Putin. On the Israel-Hamas war, Trump said the fight will now have to be different.
So I'm speaking to Bibi Netanyahu, and we are coming up with various plans. We're going to say it's a very difficult situation.
He said if Hamas did not have the hostages, things would be able to move very quickly.
But I always said when you get down to the final 10 or 20, you're not going to be able to make a deal with these people because they use them as a shield. And when they give them up, they no longer have a shield.
Asked about aid being delivered to Gaza.
We're going to set up food centers where the people can walk in.
Both Trump and Starmer said they will increase aid to Gaza.
We made a contribution a week ago of $60 million, all going into food. We only hope the food goes to the people that need it.
On the US-UK trade deal, he hinted there could be a deal to lower tariffs on British pharmaceuticals, saying it's better an ally like Britain makes pharmaceuticals for America than other nations, though he said he also wants to bring pharmaceutical production back to America. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
A massive cyber attack is impacting air travel across Russia today. Major airline Aeroflot had to cancel over 100 flights, leaving thousands of travelers stranded. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has more.
Thousands of passengers in Russia are left stranded on Monday after a cyber attack. Russian airline Aeroflot had to cancel more than 100 flights and delay others. Russian lawmaker Anton Gorelkin says Moscow is under digital attack. Quote, "We must not forget that the war against our country is being waged on all fronts, including the digital one." He added that he doesn't rule out that the attack was committed by a, quote, "unfriendly nation." Unconfirmed reports say a pro-Ukrainian group called Silent Crow is behind the cyber attack. The Kremlin commented on those reports on Monday.
The information that we read in the public domain is quite alarming. We will, of course, clarify the information and wait for appropriate answers.
Silent Crow has previously claimed responsibility for other attacks on Russia this year. including the IT department of Moscow's government, a state telecommunications company, and a large insurance company. Some of those resulted in big data leaks. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Israel today maintained a tactical pause on military operations in parts of the Gaza Strip, allowing for the increased delivery of humanitarian aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that while his country will continue to allow the entry of humanitarian supplies into Gaza, the fight against Hamas won't stop.
We will continue to fight. We will continue to act until we achieve all of our goals, until complete victory.
Footage shows dozens of trucks carrying aid bound for Gaza leaving Egypt this morning. Israel said on Sunday it would halt military operations for 10 hours a day for aid delivery. Military activity will stop daily from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time in a designated humanitarian area along the coast. The military said designated secure routes for convoys delivering food and medicine have also been in place between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. starting this past Sunday. President Trump said Israel would have to decide its next steps in Gaza. On Friday, Israel and the U.S. appeared to abandon ceasefire negotiations with Hamas, saying the terrorist group did not want a deal. The war has been raging on since October of 2023. After months of negotiations, the U.S. and the European Union have struck a trade deal. The agreement comes just days before higher U.S. tariffs were set to set in. Here are the details.
In an announcement from his golf resort in Scotland, President Trump declared the end of a transatlantic tariff standoff.
So we have good news. We've reached a deal. It's a good deal for everybody. This is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
It is.
The agreement imposes a 15% tariff on most EU goods, down from Trump's earlier proposal of 30%, and it sets up major European investment in the United States. Under the deal, the EU has committed to purchase $750 billion in American energy and invest $600 billion more in the U.S. economy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke alongside Trump on the significance of the agreement.
We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal, it's a huge deal. It will bring stability, it will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
Trump emphasized that the deal would open up European markets to U.S. companies, especially automakers and farmers, sectors he says were effectively shut out.
I think maybe cars would be the one that would go the biggest, and the second would be agriculture, the farmers.
But not everything made it into the deal. The U.S. will keep in place a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, and the deal leaves many questions open, including tariff rates on hard liquor, a contentious topic for both parties. The deal narrowly avoided an escalation that could have seen EU and U.S. tariffs spike dramatically next week, but officials on both sides cautioned that more negotiations lie ahead.
We were very clear that there were tariffs that could not be lowered. So that was clear from the very beginning, and therefore we maintain them, and this shows that we have to go in depth with other topics within the framework that I've described to sort out really the details in the next days and weeks.
European Union countries are now considering whether to approve the framework that Trump and von der Leyen unveiled yesterday.
European leaders are reacting to the U.S. trade deal with the European Union. Officials from Germany, Italy, and France share their thoughts.
The agreement is certainly challenging in terms of the 15% base tariff, but the good thing about it is that it provides certainty. It is right and important that some sectors have been excluded. For the others, it will mean a need to adapt.
Obviously, I consider the fact that an agreement has been reached positively. I have always thought that a commercial escalation between Europe and the United States would have unpredictable, potentially devastating consequences.
Yes. The fact that we now have a form of stability with our American partners is welcome. Is this agreement balanced? Number. To be very clear, this agreement is not balanced, and we will therefore need to continue working, particularly on the services side.
Shares of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, surged in pre-market trading today. The upswing comes after the EU pledged to purchase $750 billion worth of the fuel over the next 3 years. The EU agreed to buy $250 billion of LNG annually as part of its trade deal with the U.S. The U.S. became the world's biggest LNG supplier in 2023, surpassing Australia and Qatar. This came as global prices fed demand for more exports, partially due to supply disruptions and sanctions linked to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Tesla CEO Elon Musk says the automaker signed a $16 billion deal to source chips from Samsung. Here's more on that.
Samsung Electronics shares jumped Monday on news of a big deal to make chips for Tesla. Elon Musk says his EV firm has signed a $16.5 billion contract for the supply of semiconductors. That should be a big boost for Samsung's loss-making contract chip-making business. Shares in the firm were up around 6% by early afternoon following the news. Musk said a new Samsung facility in the US would be dedicated to production of the chips. That could refer to a planned plant in Taylor, Texas, which has faced delays amid the South Korean firm's struggles to win and retain big customers. Musk said the plant was conveniently located near his house, and he would personally inspect it to help accelerate progress. It's all very timely for Samsung, which has dropped behind competitors in the race to supply AI chips. Local rival SK Hynix and Taiwan giant TSMC are both seen to have streaked ahead. That has weighed heavily on Samsung's profits and share price. Analysts say the deal could also be helpful for South Korea, as it battles to clinch a trade deal with the US. The country is seeking partnerships on chips and shipbuilding as part of talks to avert a potential 25% tariff.
Lawmakers will spend the next month out of D.C. and back in their own districts. Republicans work to sell their big, beautiful bill to voters and local stakeholders, starting in Las Vegas. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Starting in the purple state of Nevada, Republicans kick off their month-long campaign to sell the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In a Las Vegas hearing, lawmakers debated the costs and benefits of the new budget and tax changes.
No tax on tips will translate to over $230 million back into the pockets of tipped workers in just the Las Vegas metro area.
From rising housing costs to falling hotel occupancy, from energy projects on pause to an impending health care cliff, the reality in Nevada tells a very different story than the one Republicans are attempting to sell.
Democrats hold nearly all congressional seats in the state. Republicans are hoping that the no tax on tips provision will help give them an upper hand in the midterms. Over the next month, both parties will fan out across the nation to sell their policy work in D.C. to voters back home.
To drive our message and to communicate that we stand for rural hospitals, we stand for people getting health care, we stand for affordable living.
And frankly, they need to cut through the false and misleading claims about the One Big Beautiful Bill from the media and the Democrats. As I mentioned, the more people know, the more they greatly favor the bill that we passed.
The month-long recess comes as lawmakers were in the midst of debate around how and when to publicly release files related to the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking crimes. The Speaker over the weekend defended his move to adjourn Congress before voting on a resolution to release the Epstein files.
And our concern is that the Massey and Khanna discharge petition is reckless in the way that it is drafted and presented. It does not adequately include those protections.
Johnson said he favors getting the files released after retractions are made to protect victims. A House committee has subpoenaed the DOJ to release the files and other high-profile Democrats and Republicans to testify. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the U.S.-EU trade deal is Daniel Lacalle, chief economist at Tresses and author of the book Freedom or Equality. Good afternoon, Daniel. Good to see you again, as always. So, I mean, is this good news because it averts further escalation in trade tensions? What are your thoughts?
Well, to start with, thank you very much, Don. It's the end of any type of trade war. It's a great deal. It's very positive for the United States. It's incredibly positive for the United States, considering all that we had heard about the European Union unwilling to negotiate any of its non-tariff barriers. The European Union is going to negotiate the non-tariff barriers, is going to accept 15% tariffs, is agreed on a 0 for 0 tariff on very strategic sectors, is also increasing massively the investment in energy and in military equipment. All of those are elements that are very, very positive for the United States, that are going to level the playing field in the trade between both economic agents. And what's most important, it is also very good for European consumers because it lifts a lot of those barriers that were burdening economic growth in the European Union itself, and it benefits consumers by bringing more products from countries, in this case from the United States.
Okay, I want to go deeper into some of the points you mentioned just now, but first, for those of us who've been following this deal between the U.S. and the EU, it's sort of like a roller coaster ride, right? Because Trump paused it and then continued it and paused it again. So how would you characterize Trump's overall approach to this deal, and how does it compare to, you know, sort of past EU-U.S. trade agreements?
Well, it's been a complex deal. It's also a historic deal, so that is logical that it makes it more difficult. But we must remember that the European Union's position relative to the Trump administration was surprisingly very, very negative from the very beginning. You have to remember that the European Commission leaders were giving very, very negative messages about the Trump administration, not just on trade, but the Trump administration in itself. So that obviously made things quite tense. Also, the media narrative didn't help because we read everywhere that the European Union would not accept any type of deal, that the European Union would not negotiate anything, that they would take retaliatory measures if there were any tariffs imposed. What we have seen is a very typical Donald Trump negotiation tactic, which is to be aggressive and at the same time fair and firm. All those things were helpful, and obviously the European Union negotiators have also taken into account the messages coming from entrepreneurs and from businesses all over the European Union that were mentioning that the trade deal had to go ahead. And when the China and Japan deals were in place, obviously the European Union had to accelerate a deal, because if the European Union had not signed this deal, which is very positive for both, the UK and Japan would have immediately absorbed a significant chunk of the level of trade globally that the European Union currently enjoys. So I think it was a strategic position from the side of President Trump to negotiate deals that would at the same time be a blueprint for the other deals that had to be negotiated, and that accelerated the domino effect. The first one was the UK deal. We talked about that. It's a very, very positive deal that immediately made Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, so many countries look at that and say, hey, we need to wise up. We need to wake up very, very fast, because we may lose a lot of trading opportunities. And the same thing happened with the European Union. And it's a very good deal for the EU.
Okay, so you're saying it's a good deal for the U.S., and you're also saying, is it an equally good deal for the European Union?
Well, obviously, I can't say equally because it's headline. It's very evident that it's an incredibly good deal for the United States. Okay, but that is obviously something that we see because of the 1.3 trillion of added investment from the European Union, from the 15% tariffs, from the 0 for 0 tariffs, etc. But what we're likely to see is that the European Union benefits in a less headline type of way. For example, strong partnership in energy, in defense, and in technology with the United States, which can rapidly boost the economic growth and investment opportunities within the European Union. Second, it has not delivered any headlines, but the decision of the European Union to start negotiating its non-tariff barriers is an essential part of an improvement for the European Union itself as the ex-president of the ECB, Mario Draghi, outlined a few months ago, almost a year ago, in the Draghi report that basically was ignored by a lot of bureaucrats. So for the European Union, the benefits may seem less headline-grabbing, but they're very significant considering the lack of leadership in energy, in defense, and in technology. And this partnership certainly accelerates an improvement in the three areas, but also in the automotive sector, in agriculture, in farming, and in chemicals.
So Daniel, in my opinion, I think you're the exactly right person to talk to about this EU-US trade deal. So can you give us more insight then? I want to hear more about the internal dynamics of the European Union through this process of negotiation and then finally cementing this deal.
Well, I think that at the beginning, there was a very aggressive position from the European Commission stating that they would not negotiate anything and that basically they would not accept any type of tariffs and that they would impose retaliatory tariffs. I think that a key element in accelerating this deal has been the position of Germany and of Italy. Germany and Italy that understand global trade, that understand the significant challenges that exporters face within the European Union and the opportunities that a strategic partnership with the United States can bring, were instrumental in changing the position of the EU negotiators. France as well, very important, because let's remember that France is one of the countries that had been purchasing more liquefied natural gas from Russia. So the agreement which brings more investment from the United States and therefore more energy from the United States is a positive for France as well. So all in all, I think that what has happened is that business leaders, some of the political leaders, have started to, let's say, take action in order to tell the negotiators that they had to reach a deal that was positive and at the same time that was realistic. Because what you could not expect after there was a trade deal with China, with Japan, with Indonesia, with Philippines, with the UK, one could not expect the world to be in a sort of isolation relative to the European Union. And obviously all of those exporters were thinking, hey, once Japan, the UK have signed a deal, we have to sign a deal because it's very important for us to address our working capital challenges, continue to export to the United States now that the bluff of saying that we will find other markets and that we may sell our products to Brazil obviously had no merit, no, and this is an important factor. So I would say that at the beginning, the position of the European Union was very, very aggressive and even confrontational. And it's interesting because the European Union had the easiest trade deal of them all. The only thing that the European Union would have to do was to go and to implement a lot of the recommendations of the Draghi report, the ex-president of the European Central Bank, because those coincided 87-90% with what Howard Lutnick's demands were, no? Lift non-trade barriers, lift those enormous tariffs against chemicals, against the automotive sector of the United States, against agriculture, against farming, all of those things. So I think that gradually the role of Italy, the role of Ireland, and the role of Germany have been instrumental in making the EU be more realistic about the situation. And once the deal with Japan was closed, it was evident that they had to go out and accelerate a good deal like this one is, because the alternative would be the demolition of the exporting sector in the European Union.
You know, Daniel, I always like to bring in the China angle to our interviews. So before we wrap up, let me just ask you one question about that. It seems like in recent times, both the U.S. and China have been on the EU's case about tariffs. So give us your comments on the relationship, the dynamics between these three parties. How is China looking at this after the deal is completed?
This deal between the United States and the European Union is certainly a blow to the Russia-China strategic partnership, because obviously in the energy part, it is leading to higher investments from the European Union in energy and obviously more imports of liquefied natural gas that go against the interests of Russia. But it's also a blow to the Chinese aspirations of becoming the technological partner of the European Union. Because in the agreement with the European Union, the United States becomes the strategic partner in chips for artificial intelligence. So for China, obviously, is going to continue to be a strong trading partner of the European Union, but it's certainly going to make it very, very difficult to achieve that sort of long-term strategic goal of separating the EU from the United States, of confronting the EU and the United States, and also presenting itself as, let's say, the reliable partner in technology. That is obviously gone with this trade deal, and also very negative for the Russian energy sector, certainly.
Okay, Daniel, always great to hear your insight. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Coming up, a man who allegedly went on a stabbing spree at a Michigan Walmart could now face terrorism charges. Extreme heat will affect more than 100 million people nationwide, and forecasters say there's no relief for at least a few days. We have that and more after the break.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
A man accused of a violent Walmart attack could face terrorism charges. Authorities say a man entered a Walmart in Michigan on Saturday and randomly stabbed 11 shoppers before being detained by several bystanders in the parking lot.
During the incident, 11 individuals were injured by the suspect. The weapon used was a folding knife with a 3.5-inch cutting blade. Aid was immediately provided to the victims by responding law enforcement, citizens, and other emergency responders.
The suspect's name is Bradford Gilly of Afton. No motive is currently known. He is expected to be charged with 1 count of terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder. The suspect had prior assault incidents as well as controlled substance violations. The victims include both men and women ranging in age from 29 to 84. One was a Walmart employee. The stabbings began at the checkout counter inside the store and continued into the parking lot. Witness video shows bystanders confronting the suspect in the parking lot. Authorities praised the quick response from law enforcement officers as well as the bystanders who intervened and detained Gilly in the parking lot. The suspect was taken into custody by police shortly afterwards. Heart-pounding moments at Denver International Airport. Passengers were forced to evacuate a smoking American Airlines jet using an emergency slide on Saturday.
It was kind of crazy. Like, people started screaming. They didn't really know what was going on. One kid said, "We're all gonna die." Like, babies were freaking out. Everyone started kind of like shoving and like moving in different directions. Nobody really knew where to go. And then finally, like, the flight attendant said, "Go to the back, go to the back." And so then, of course, everybody else started saying, "Go to the back." So we all start running to the back. And that's when we went down the slide. I mean, honestly, like, you just gotta like appreciate what you're given. And like, I'm so grateful like that it wasn't worse.
Dramatic eyewitness footage shows smoke and flames billowing from below the rear of the plane as panicked passengers run from the aircraft, some with young children in their arms. American Airlines says the plane experienced a mechanical issue on takeoff, roll that involved an aircraft tire. It says all 173 passengers and 6 crew exited the plane safely. The Denver Fire Department says crews extinguished a fire while responding to the incident. One of the passengers was taken to a hospital with a minor injury. The flight was scheduled to fly from Denver to Miami and started its takeoff at around 1:15 p.m. local time before coming to a halt in the middle of the runway. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy wrote on X that it's important for passengers to follow crew instructions and leave their luggage behind during emergency evacuations. More than 130 million people across the U.S. are under alerts for dangerous widespread heat, some areas facing potentially life-threatening conditions into midweek. Tampa, Florida broke a historic record yesterday, hitting 100 degrees for the first time since reliable records began 135 years ago. The city remains under a level 4 out of 4 extreme heat risk, with heat indexes expected to exceed 110 degrees through Saturday. That's how hot it will feel when air temperature and humidity are combined. Looking ahead, a dangerous heat wave is set to impact much of the eastern U.S. starting today. Heat advisories will be in effect from Boston to New York City, with heat indexes climbing as high as 105 degrees. The extreme heat will stretch through Wednesday, bringing actual temperatures in the upper 90s to low 100s to cities like St. Louis, Memphis, Charlotte, and Tampa. Factoring in tropical moisture, it could feel more like 115 degrees in parts of the southeast. The area will be under a level 4 extreme heat risk through midweek. Meanwhile, dangerous storms are forecast across the northern plains, with tornadoes possible in parts of South Dakota and Minnesota. And joining us now to discuss the trade deals is Michael Busler, an economist and public policy analyst and professor of finance at Stockton University. Michael, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. So President Trump has said that he reached a trade deal with the European Union. So what do you think about that? Maybe perhaps summarize this deal for us and focus on how this would impact the U.S.
So this is a huge deal. It's really a historic deal. How big is it? So last year, the U.S. bought over $600 billion worth of goods from the European Union. The European Union bought about $370 billion from the U.S., and there lies a negative balance of trade. The balance is, negative mostly because U.S. businesses could not sell their goods to most of the countries in Europe, the whole European Union. Why not? Because the European Union put very high tariffs on American goods, especially agricultural products, and they put quotas. You can only sell so much. And they, on some products, they put additional regulations. So what this deal does, it sets the tariff on most goods at 15%, which is down from the 25 or 30% Trump was originally considering. And that'll be a reciprocal tariff. We'll charge them, they'll charge us on most goods, except where they had these exceptions. So what are the exceptions? Boeing will be able to sell their airplanes to the European Union, the country's airlines, without any tariff. In return, Airbus will be able to sell their planes in the U.S. without any tariffs. I think this is very significant because it allows for competition, free competition between the two airlines, which I think is excellent. Personally, I think Boeing had an edge for many years. And then when Airbus was formed, and to be perfectly candid, I was a little bit concerned that a company formed with government intervention usually doesn't work out real well. And I was wrong. This one worked out very well. And many people now feel that the A320s, et cetera, that the Airbus is selling to the U.S. are better planes than what some of the Boeing planes are. So how will Boeing have to respond to that? They'll have to make their planes better than the Airbus planes. And that's the whole spirit of competition. So the competition in the airlines will be there. The agricultural products, the tariffs are very low, and in some cases there are no tariffs. The Americans are very efficient at producing food. We produce high quality food at much lower cost than practically anybody in the world. We'd like to be able to sell that food around the world, but nearly every country said that they want to protect their farmers. So they're going to put high tariffs on American agricultural products to protect their farmers, and that kept the American agricultural products out of those markets. That's now been eliminated. The agricultural industry in the U.S. will see a huge boost, and that will help the U.S. economy grow. Now, I saw on social media, some people are saying, well, wait a minute, we're going to end up paying more for Mercedes-Benz and BMWs. And that's only partially true. Why? Mercedes-Benz are assembled in the South, I think in Georgia or Alabama. BMWs are assembled in South Carolina. While some of the components, engines, transmission, et cetera, are made in Europe and sent over here, they'll be subject to a tariff. The rest of the assembly will not. So I think there will only be very small, if any, increases in European goods. And on the other side, the American companies will be able to sell their goods in Europe. That will eliminate this negative balance of trade that we've had really for decades.
So you mentioned the points where the EU has committed to more investments into the U.S., more purchases. So then the question is, the U.S. has a trade deficit, at least last year, of over $235 billion with the EU. This deal, is that going to address that trade balance? Is it going to make it more balanced? Is it going to reduce that deficit?
Yes, that's exactly what it'll do. Because these foreign markets are now open to U.S. suppliers, U.S. companies will be able to sell more of their products. So what we export to them will start to go up. We'll probably buy about the same amount from them. I don't think the tariffs are going to have a significant impact on the quantity that we buy from Europe, but what we sell to Europe will go up significantly. And I think within a year or so, you'll see the balance of trade fairly even. A couple of other things. The European Union has committed to buy large amounts, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of U.S. energy, natural gas, and other products. that will help our energy industry. And from a political standpoint, the European Union relies somewhat, maybe heavily, on Russia for energy. And when they buy that energy from Russia, that gives them their income to support not only their economy, but also the war in Ukraine. So by shifting their purchasing to the U.S., that will hurt the Russian economy and probably bring the Russians to the table sooner rather than later. You may have also heard that President Trump, who gave the Russians 50 days a couple of weeks ago to come up with a peace deal with the Ukraine, he's now saying there's no sense dragging this out. Russia doesn't appear to want to do anything, and they keep bombing the heck out of Ukraine. So I'm going to reduce that time to 10 or 12 days. At that time, if Russia hasn't come up with a peace deal, President Trump will put very severe sanctions on Russia that will cripple their already weakening economy. And Trump is hoping that'll bring them to the table to negotiate a peace settlement with the Ukraine.
So do you think the European Union got just as good a deal that the U.S. got in this agreement?
No, the U.S. definitely got a better deal. So why did the European Union agree to it? Because Trump, who's a master negotiator, Trump said to them, look, for decades, you've been essentially ripping us off. You've been able to sell so much of your goods in our country and not allowing us to sell our goods in your country. This is going to be fixed now. So this deal, I think it's good for the European Union in that higher tariffs would not be imposed, and it also stabilizes things. So we know exactly what the deal is. Business, one thing business doesn't like is uncertainty. Once you know whether things are going to happen, whether it's good or bad, you can deal with it. But if you don't know what's going to happen, it's very difficult to make decisions. So as the European Union leaders themselves pointed out, this will bring stability to the trading relationship between the U.S. and the European Union. And as I mentioned, between imports and exports, the total value is approaching $1 trillion annually. This is good for both sides. I think the U.S. came out a little bit better, but that's done to make up for the bad position the U.S. was in for so many decades.
Okay, so with this deal behind us, there is still a little bit of trade negotiations happening between U.S. and China, right? I'm wondering if you have any comments on that front.
China's economy is weakening. They had a real estate industry that boomed for years, financed on debt, primarily on debt. Now that their incomes are going down and they can't service the debt, they're running into problems. Last year, China sold about $450 billion worth of their output to the U.S. If that gets cut in half or worse because of high tariffs, that will clobber the Chinese economy. They can't afford to allow that to happen. I believe President Trump has given them until August 12th to come up with a deal. And if they don't, he'll put extremely high tariffs that will hurt them. I think China will be forced to the bargaining table. Scott Bessent is in Sweden now, I think, negotiating with China. I think you're going to see a good deal with China. Again, probably slanted more to the U.S. favor because we've had such disfavor for many years. But you'll see a deal come about, I would say, sometime within the next 10 days, maybe within the next 2 or 3 days, that will again stabilize the relationship, and it will make the trading relationship more equal. We had a $300 billion negative balance of trade with China, mostly because they too put restrictions on U.S. suppliers by high tariffs and quotas, et cetera. That will be eliminated, and you'll see the amount that we export to China go up significantly, and that too will tend to reduce the trade deficit.
So what is your feeling, Michael, on this deal, whether we're going to be able to settle on it by the deadline, which is August 12th, or are we going to see what we saw a few months ago with the brief tariff war where each side, increased tariffs and then reaching over 100%? Are we going to see that?
I don't believe so. I think they'll come up with an agreement before the deadline. If they don't, Trump will put those high tariffs on, and while the U.S. will feel some pain, it will clobber the Chinese economy. And even if they don't come to a deal a short time thereafter, after that August 12th deadline, I think they'll be forced to come up with a deal before their economy goes into a recession or something worse. Politically, President Xi is in a difficult position here. He's got to come up with a deal because the economy in China, as I said, isn't doing well. And if it starts doing worse, his job could be in jeopardy also.
Well, Michael, it's always great to hear your insight. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Don. Always my pleasure.
When we come back, President Trump reached a massive deal with the EU while Germany and Italy welcomed the agreement. What does France think? Stay tuned. A new Taiwanese TV series shows what a Chinese invasion could look like. Find out why some viewers say the show is a wake-up call after the break.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. Let's go. They're always in their own world. What'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
President Trump has signed a 15% tariff agreement with the European Union, calling it the biggest deal ever. Experts in Europe believe the move will bring stability not only to economic ties, but also the broader U.S.-EU relationship. But not everyone is happy. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
President Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have signed an agreement to impose a 15% tariff on most European products imported into the United States. The 27 EU member states also committed to purchasing more American oil and gas and to investing in the country. While the Italian Prime Minister and German Chancellor expressed satisfaction with the agreement, reactions in France have been mixed. French Prime Minister François Bayrou called it a dog day for Europe. He said the bloc gave in to pressure from Donald Trump and described the agreement as an act of submission, referring to it as the von der Leyen-Trump deal. However, political commentators acknowledge that the deal brings more stability to EU-US trade and is an improvement over the previously threatened 30% tariff rate. There will also be exemptions for key French export sectors such as spirits and aerospace. According to French editorialist Gérald Olivier, the 15% tariff on EU products are meant to balance the cost of the EU's value-added tax, which creates a major imbalance in international trade.
The VAT, our value-added tax in France and in other European countries, which is not technically a tariff, but it is nonetheless an added cost to the cost of products. And when we live in the EU, everyone pays the VAT tax on everything you buy. But from the point of view of international trade, when you export something, it is exported without the VAT tax.
European companies are expected to invest $600 billion in the United States over the course of Trump's second term. The EU's $750 billion in purchases, including oil, LNG and nuclear technology, will be structured through a mix of short and long-term agreements. The amount has been estimated on the basis of Europe's planned phase-out of energy purchases from Russia. Olivier says the new trade deal isn't just about money, but also about consolidating EU-US relations as the EU scales back imports from China and Russia.
Eventually, we might see that these trade negotiations actually expand beyond the world of trade into a reorganizing of the what we call the transatlantic relationship. The goal is to get somewhere, and he knows exactly where he wants to get. He wants to get to an America which is powerful, which is safe, and to a world which is also safe and where trade can actually take place. That's the ultimate objective of Trump's policy, and the tariffs are a little part of it.
The agreement between von der Leyen and Trump is just the first step. EU countries must now validate it through further consultations. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A new Taiwanese television series that imagines the run-up to a Chinese invasion is getting rave reviews from viewers. Take a look at what the audience members had to say.
A TV show confronting the fear of a war with China is giving viewers in Taiwan a wake-up call as Beijing steps up military threats around the democratically governed island. The new drama Zero Day Attack previewed in Taipei last week. The 10-episode series focuses on scenarios Taiwan might face in the lead-up to a Chinese attack. That includes a global financial collapse, activation of Chinese sleeper agents, and panicked residents trying to flee the island. Attendees at viewings in Taipei last week included the top U.S. diplomat in Taiwan, Raymond Green, who is the director of the American Institute in Taiwan, and Taiwanese tycoon Robert Tsao, a strident critic of Beijing. Some who watched the first episode gave it their approval.
That the series is close to reality is exactly why it should be filmed. Because if you avoid talking about these issues, it doesn't mean that it will not happen. Presenting such a situation of conflict can lead to more discussion about what we should do if it really turns into reality one day.
China considers democratic Taiwan as part of its own territory and calls its president a separatist. Taiwan's government disputes China's claim. In recent years, China has escalated its military drills in the area, including at least 6 rounds of major war games in the past 5 years, and daily military activities close to Taiwan. For years, the premise of zero-day attack was a topic that was thought too sensitive for many Taiwanese filmmakers and television show creators, many of whom feared losing access to the lucrative Chinese entertainment market. More than half of the show's crew asked to remain anonymous on the crew list, and some, including a director, pulled out of the production at the last minute. The series is set to premiere in Taiwan on August 2nd, and will be followed by streaming in Japan and in other countries.
And just north of the border, one of the world's longest-running offshore fireworks festivals lit up the skies of Vancouver, Canada last Friday. The Honda Celebration of Light, now in its 33rd year, is a beloved Canadian summer tradition. A dazzling display of lights, music, and national pride brought hundreds of thousands together by the bay. Here's a closer look at how Canadians celebrate summer in spectacular fashion.
A roaring sound broke the calm skies as the Royal Canadian Air Force Snowbirds soared over Vancouver's English Bay. The renowned aerobatics team opened the show with tight formations and dazzling stunts, carving silver arcs across the sky with their CT-114 jets, wowing hundreds of thousands of spectators.
Very incredible. The aerobatics, that was beautiful. That was gorgeous. I think that was wonderful. The choreography was pretty nice.
It was really cool. All synchronized. They were great. They were really good.
As night fell, 400 drones lit up the sky, forming images like the Canadian flag and maple leaves under the theme, Proud to be Canadian. The show also paid tribute to national heroes like Terry Fox, whose Marathon of Hope continues to inspire people across Canada and beyond. Set to stirring classic music, waves of colorful fireworks lit up the night sky, igniting a sense of wonder, joy, and shared celebration.
Irish, we came all the way just for this. Way better than anything I've ever seen.
Coming from a small village in Ireland, it's seeing this amount of people in one place, it's unseen. It really lifts your spirits.
And I always find it so interesting how they time it with the music. There was some really cool stuff going on here, and it was timed so perfectly.
Once again, united locals and tourists alike in a dazzling display of light, making Vancouver a top summer destination for visitors from around the world. NTD News, Canada.
Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio praising Vice President J.D. Vance as a strong candidate for the 2028 presidential election. How much does early preparation matter? Our expert panel breaks it down.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422, 800-210-6422.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
If you love them enough